Good morning, everyone.
The head honcho had to go to the doctor first thing this morning to get his finger infection deal looked at. Maybe they'll have to cut it off. Who knows? We're gonna see how much stuff we can mess up before he shows back up to work.
Currently, every single one of these bins is full, except for this one. It's just got room for a little bit more. Because of that shiver system, we weren't able to get the auger straight drop down in there, and if the pile is not forming in the center of the cone of the bin, sometimes it can be loading the back side heavier or the front side, so it'll be lopsided. And if you're not careful, you'll actually run it over the back and still have what you think is room in the front because your pile's not center and gravity's distributing everything equally. So once Jeff gets out here this morning, we're gonna fire everything up. I'm gonna get up there probably with a shovel and try and direct this load into the bin. Whoa! Freaking pigeons. I think I'm gonna have to... Well, there's another one! Look at them all. I absolutely cannot stand pigeons. They're literally winged rats. Anyways, I'm gonna get up there and direct the flow of the grain whatever way we need to get as much in the bin as possible. Then we're probably gonna shut the lid on it, call it full, and then move the drive over to a different bin site. Harvest is really starting to wind down for us. Had all our soybeans cut by beginning of last week, 10 plus days ago. I think we've got about 400 acres of corn left. There's quite a bit due this morning, so I'm going to run the drive over just to get the moisture off the belts. Do some multitasking. Check the oil, an Old Faithful 7800. Now this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is a darn good tractor. I believe we've owned it since new. We actually had twins. The other one left the farm many years ago and is what is now one of our planting tractors up the line. What was a 7800 is now going to be Dad's 8R340 this next spring, but we kept this one because it's good. It's really got exactly what you need. Plenty of horsepower to run the 13-inch auger. It's got hours on it. We can run the batwing. Don't have to feel guilty about putting even more hours on it. And it's simple and reliable. Hard to beat this thing. Definitely has enough horsepower to spin the auger, but it is a workout, especially first thing in the morning. Jeff climbed up there and doesn't think it's going to have any issues spinning. Auger set to a new bin. Big combine just fired up, so we're rolling. Pulling out of the soybean stubble where we parked last night to the cornfield on the north side of the road. This should be our last field of light rolling, top of the glacial moraine, eroded dirt. I would venture to say that if this makes 200 bushel an acre, we'll be lucky, especially because my rainfall data sources say that this farm got the least amount of rain this growing season of any of our farms, which is ironic because this farm is the farm that needs the most amount of rain during the growing season. There you go, train guys. Putting on a real show for you today. Okay, to be fair, you guys are not the only ones who are expecting more than one locomotive. That's Illinois Central, that's a C and rail, so they're probably just transporting from one place to the other.
I forgot about one field we had to leave earlier on in the year because we started to cut beans. It's only 20 acres, so Dad's just gonna take his combine up there. I'll follow him with the cart. Katie's gonna take care of some stuff around home, and then we'll all meet at the fuel barrel once that's done and move to a different farm down south, a little bit bigger, justifies more combines. This field's gonna go to the elevator too, so both machines will just load us up too quick. Emptying out the cart and then moving to the next farm. I guess even I'm surprised every once in a while. That farm made 206 bushel an acre dry. For that dirt, we'll take it. Just to fill you back in, this field made 230, this one made 206, these ones made like 205 or something, 253, 246, 230. You're seeing the variability here that I've been trying to describe to you because of the topography, the glacial moraine. It makes a big deal. Now we're moving up to this field that I mentioned that we forgot about, although we didn't forget about it. We're going to get it, just never got to it yet. It's good dirt, a little bit swampy. I don't know how it'll yield, probably 230-ish. This corn made 240, 240-ish there. So we'll see. I was about to move to the field and then I picked up a hitchhiker on the side of the road. You just look very excited. You ready to do some farming?
Mama, man.
Okay. Didn't want to hang out with me? Well, that's the saddest face I've ever seen. Who's on your shirt? Is that Buzz Lightyear? Is that Woody over there? Is that your breakfast on Woody? Yeah. We gotta go catch up with Mort in the combine. You ready to go? Hey, that's how I feel some days at work too. I probably should have cleaned the old windows and mirrors this morning, but I just didn't get around to it for the second week in a row. Lenny? I don't think that's what that's for, buddy. What are you drawing, buddy? No, we don't touch the power shift. Dad said there's a coyote. Oh, there he is. Hanging out here, probably preying on the neighborhood cats and gerbils. It's an interesting story for you. We moved from town to the farm probably 4 months ago now. I don't know, the timeline's a little gray. One of our cats, who was a notorious adventurer in town and also out at the farm once we moved out there, has been gone for 5 weeks now. So I don't think he's coming back. He probably found a coyote. We'll see if he shows up. Statistically speaking, every day that goes by, the less likely it is that he shows back up. He was a good cat. We've had him for like 5 years. In town, cats are like top of the food chain. Out in the country, they may be in the top third, but there's a few animals that are a few rings above them out there. So hopefully he shows up. We loved him, but at the same time, nature's gonna run its course, and he's definitely terminated the lives of a lot of animals in his own right. So it's only right that the scales find balance. Emptied her out. We got 207 bushel an acre dry. Not spectacular, especially for this farm because it's fairly good dirt. The grain cart hasn't been home in probably a week. Time for some fuel at DEF if I even get an opportunity. Hopefully the big combine left a little fuel for me. More specifically, need diesel exhaust fluid. I could probably leave without fueling up. The problem with everything needing diesel exhaust fluid now and not having a fancy Thunder Creek-like fuel trailer that has a diesel exhaust fluid tank and pump on it is that some of our other farm sites, bin sites, we have fuel tanks on them, but we never put any kind of like DEF system on there. So we can get diesel fuel, but we can't get DEF. I thought, you know what, I'm sitting here, might as well grease the drive line on the grain cart because it sees a lot of action in corn, unload a lot of bushels in a field. I got my dad's grease gun out. He just got a DeWalt gun with just the standard kind of pressure fitting on the end, not the lock and lube. I grease one thing, fine. I go to grease the second carrier bearing, can't get it off, end up ripping out the greaser. Then I go to the next one, frustrated. Same exact thing happens. I rip out 2 of them in the row. I wasn't necessarily always sold on this lock and lube, but in that instance right there, I have just wholeheartedly stamped my approval on the lock and lube grease gun end. If you're not using one of these, it is a little inconvenient at times because there's some things that are a little harder to get to because it's longer. Overall though, this is way better than ripping out your grease zerks and having to replace them. Moral of the story, that's what I get for trying to take care of this stuff. I just end up making it worse. Ooh, look at the neighbor's versatile 610 DT. Moved to the next farm, one of our last 2 fields that are our own family's land. Should be decent corn here. This is a good pocket of ground. Oh wow, that's a pretty big tile hole. I think the main that comes through here is like 30 inches, so probably gonna be a pretty big hole if it starts raining again. Anyways, enough rambling. This field is DeKalb 6357 around the outside, and then the inside of it is DeKalb 6289. I know we've got the genetics out here to yield really well. We'll see what the combines pull off as we go through it. It's definitely better corn than we've been in the last few days. Combine average is showing 246 dry. Instant monitors showing 280, 250, 280, 250, 250, 270, 276. So it's definitely gonna be 240, 250 bushel corn, which will be at the top of our heap at the end of the year, especially because we pick a lot of poor corn. Between both combines running in higher yielding corn and the 4-mile drive to the bin site, we've already caught the trucks within the first 30-40 minutes or so. Well, they're hauling right there. It's about 2/3 of the way to our main farm. It's actually directly in line. It's 3 or 4 small little bins, and you can kind of see the main farm another mile to the northeast because you can see the shiny new bin on the back side of it. So here comes one of our semis. I'll get another 1,000 bushel off of here. Before I do, I'm going to use the corn to walk back there and adjust my back camera because I've been waiting on a good opportunity to do so. Okay, take 2. You guys stay right there. Good enough. Look at the size of these kernels. I bet you the test weight on this corn is ridiculous. I could load the heck out of a trailer and kind of let you know, but I may get in trouble if I do that. Probably in the DeKalb 6289 by now. Bayer genetics typically have fairly impressive seed depth, test weight, seed quality. The big combine hasn't stopped yet, so I guess technically we haven't caught the trucks. I probably will not get this truck loaded before that big combine's full though. Jeff's load is 11,000 to the bin, Dad. Oh yeah, look at that camera quality, nice and clean. It was a little bit overdue because I haven't done that all season. The boss man's picking the opposite direction right now, so if we get this loaded quick enough and full enough, we can do a relative test weight check here. It's actually not that heavy at all. 939 bushels on a stuff full load. Probably still legal too, so take back what I said about it looking heavy. The first bin we set up to is about full. Only holds 14,000 bushels, so it's not really that much of a feat. Dad went in to supervise the topping off of that. Katie and I are going to keep picking until we catch the remaining trucks, and then they either have the bin set or I'll ride in with the truck and help it finish shredding. Between our good soil, strong genetics available here in central Illinois, fungicide, and just a good growing season overall, we typically don't have to pick that low because most of our corn stands up fairly well, even when it gets to 13, 14, 15% moisture, unlike some areas like those Minnesota boys you always see picking stuff off the ground. They may have a much more severe wind than we do, which is ironic because the wind's blowing right now. The point being, when the corn head has to run lower to the ground, you're asking a lot more out of it. You start to see where the weak points are because those gathering chains, the snap and rolls, they start to get some dirt in them, whether from rubbing on the ground or pulling in root balls, depending on what's happening, and that is very hard on the header as a whole. Typically, our corn does not look like this. It's usually standing up fairly well. We spend most of our time running our corn heads just a couple foot off the ground because you don't necessarily need to process that bottom foot to 2 foot if you don't need to worry about picking the ears up off the ground. You can see in areas though we have a pretty good lodge going on with some of this DeKalb corn, albeit it's high yielding stuff. makes you have to reconsider how you're harvesting. If you want to pick up some of these ones that have fallen off, and you can even see we're missing some, you got to run those snouts down in the ground. You get those moving parts of the header equipment in the dirt. It's just a recipe for stress. That stress is actually two-part. It's on the corn head and it's on the operator of the combine, because they have to pay much more attention than they normally do. And you could also additionally mention that if you start bringing dirt into the combine, it's hard on the separating and threshing elements of the machine as well. The question you got to ask yourself is, are you willing to pick down corn if it's got 36,000 ears that look like this? A lot of people would say, yeah, they happily pick it up off the ground, assuming they can get it all, if it's making 240 to 250. We've got this same hybrid DeKalb 6289 on a few other farms, even close to here. None of it's down. I don't know if this is a higher yield environment and the plants grew taller because it's a darker, more productive soil and the wind took it down. Was the tallest corn I've sprayed all year. I had my Hagee boom up at fungicide pinned to the top to spray this stuff. Or it could be that there was a localized windstorm that went through this very flat area, picked up speed, and laid our corn over. Either way, we're not getting them all, that's for sure. Wow, great throw. This will be the last load off the first 40 of this 80. There's two split farms there, different ownership. They're both family members, but they're not identical, so we obviously got to keep them separate to make sure everything's fair. My brother-in-law has been running a truck for us this fall, so we've had 3 drivers instead of our normal 2, and we are more effective with 3 trucks and 3 drivers than we are with 2 drivers and 4 trucks. The extra driver makes all the difference. Obviously you got to schedule the extra driver, and I don't know if he's getting paid or not, we haven't gotten that far, but there's complexities to having more drivers, but it's easier than having multiple trucks. I'm actually kind of surprised. There's definitely a perfect ratio, although it's kind of a moving target depending on your crops, depending on your distance, depending on your harvesting capacity. I mean, there's a million different factors to consider to determine what's optimal. To be as blunt as possible, the biggest thing helping us this year versus last year is we're not harvesting any 260, 270 bushel corn on any of our fields. There's some poor stuff out here, 200 bushel. That is a whole different ball game when you're picking 30% less corn per acre. Logistically, for getting it away and storing it, it's just completely different. I just did the math. The eastern 41 acres here had about 10,500 bushel, which gives us a dry yield of 254 and change, which would put it at the top of our yield list this year. Pretty good. Not super surprising because this is a nice, flat, poorly drained field, high fertility, high organic matter, good water holding capacity. Exactly what you'd want for a year like this. For reference, our 70-acre field of beans across the road made 80 with a lot of water damage in them because it's kind of a ponding field and we had a big rain. Doesn't take much on soybeans to hurt them in the summer. And this field did good as well. That's what I was expecting. With the corn being down, we may have lost 1% or 2 just because I'm sure we didn't get all of the ears in the down area. So it is what it is. The western 41 acres of this 80, it's technically an 80, but it farms like an 82. I'm not even going to get into that topic, but I go off of what the GPS technology says for acreage, so that's what I base my yields on. Dad uses the FSA data. This is a whole can of worms I'm not even going to get into. This has some roll to it. You can kind of see the combine cresting down a hill right now. It's a little bit lighter on top, so just guessing 10 to 15 bushel an acre less, although I could be wrong. Hopefully I am. My curiosity got the best of me, so I stopped back at this tile hole. This runs to the farm over there, about where that anhydrous pipeline valve is. It is a drainage district main, meaning it is a taxing body based main for the benefit of everyone. Runs like a mile, quarter mile and a half, I don't know, to the south there. Fairly big tile. It's either a 24 or a 30, although it's clay, and I'm seeing plastic right there. So what we're seeing is probably us, maybe most likely us or a contractor came in and fixed that clay main, put some plastic in, and then the next piece in the line just broke. That's typically what happened. Someone told me that this tile was laid back in the day where they had like prison work crews who went around, and a bunch of prisoners came out here and dug the trench to run this probably 100-year-old clay tile for 1.5 miles. Shoot, I'd scoff at the idea of even have to fix this one little section with a shovel, let alone having to lay 5-6 foot in the ground, 24 to 30 inch clay tile for 1.5 miles plus. Sounds like hard work. Boss man's back. I don't know if he's driving to me, maybe he is. Grain cart drivers, take note. If you just don't move, eventually the combine comes to you. Ah, the lovely time of day where you literally cannot see anything. It didn't take long. We're already catching the trucks again with both machines running. Nice of the neighbors to let us just turn around in their field. Dad thinks his feeder house chains have jumped off center a little bit, so they're not lined up correctly. He wants me to just give a second opinion on it. I had to put my vest back on because the sun set. Yes, I know I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt with a vest. It's like the hybrid approach to cool mornings and warm days. Keep the core warm when you need it, but get the airflow to the arms. That's what life's all about, right? I'm looking at straight across the drum. That feeder house chain has jumped up one, I think. That's what it looks like to me. There's a series of chains and bars that go up the feeder house. That's what kind of conveys the ears and the soybean material up to the feed accelerator to throw it into the threshing system. Sometimes those bars that sit on the chain, there's 4 chains with bars on it, can like jump a gear or jump on the sprocket. I'm not entirely sure how it works. We've had it happen a few times before, but I don't know if Dad just noticed it or if it's not feeding right, but that's what we see. He thinks he can just run it tonight, and then in the morning we can fix it if we think it's an issue. The cameras work even better at night. Okay, we are going to shut down at some point in the next few minutes or so, I think. I'll just check in with you guys tomorrow. We finished that bin site over there last night before we shut down. Now we're moving everything about 4 or 5 miles to the west to our last bin site to fill it up. Fortunately for me this winter, doesn't look like we're going to be filling the harvesters, which was kind of the point of building that new 48-foot bin, was to not use some of this older stuff that's a little more cumbersome. The old Cummins got a little bit of a fuel leak, I believe. I don't think that would be oil. Definitely not coolant. I don't know if that's a fuel pump in there or what. There's the bin site we're setting up at right there. And there's the boss man with the drive over pit. Everything's ready to go at that bin site. We're gonna move that way. It's only 3 miles from this farm. Got about 250 bushel on the cart that I just need to separate off because we got some different splits going on. And then I'll be headed that way as well. This field we're opening up right now is Pioneer 0953, 109-day corn. One could make a very fair argument that we probably should have picked this 3 weeks ago, because I'm sure it is plenty dry. If we're not going to get to it until last, we should be planting 116 to 117 day corn, not 109 day. If it's below 15%, you're losing money. Both combines are at the field. We've got 3 or 4 hours before the rain moves in. Unless something bad happens, there's no reason we shouldn't have this done in 2 hours. We gotta fill the bins and then we're done with our stuff. We got a big field next.
Side effects of running 2 combines in just 1 grain cart in corn is that unless something breaks down or they're opening up a field and I get a minute to have a breather, I don't get a lot of opportunities to actually get out and watch them work. Sometimes if it's urgent enough, I make them stop and wait on me so I can use the bathroom, but other than that, I don't get a lot of free time to mess around. Uh-oh, almost had a disaster. Lost my worn out gloves. You don't have to do any kind of hard work if you don't have gloves. Think smarter, don't work harder.
This load ought to fill that middle bin. We'll probably move to the south one and we won't even need the north one. Good thing we're pretty much done with this field because the rain is moving in. Kind of wish that storm would build a little bit so I get the whole weekend off.
I mean, it's all gonna fit in the bin. We literally have a whole nother bin we haven't even loaded yet. We just sent our other 2 trucks home so they could get started on the process of moving everything else home, and the other one's just not keeping up, I guess. Definitely feels like fall today, not that it hasn't for the last few weeks. Very gray outside. I can see the rain to the west, although it's kind of blowing to the northeast, so it's not exactly approaching us quickly. It's within eyesight though.
Oh, we weren't quite quick enough because here comes the rain and it's a good one.
This rain is so cold, chilly. Just for the sake of finishing this up, we're gonna go ahead and load the back once we get empty. Oh man, I am absolutely soaked right now. There are places of my body that only see water if I take a bath or get in a swimming pool, and those are wet right now too, so that tells you how damp it is. Sure, the picture's not super clear right now. I thought Katie and Dad were gonna come back and help us clean up and get Katie's combine. Home is only, I don't know, 5 miles east of here, but they never showed up. Can't say I blame them, but Chris, Jeff, Nate, and I cleaned everything up. I don't have the jack for the drive over, but we went ahead and straightened the legs out with the hydraulics on the loader tractor. We can put the jack in and take it home later. I'm following with the grain cart now and probably done for the day. I may need to do a cycle or two in the dryer right now before I'm ready to do anything else. I'd say they were a little off on their ½ inch. Surely we've gotten an inch already. Perfect weather for a guilt-free rest of the afternoon off. I'd be amiss if I didn't give you the final numbers of that field. Pioneer 0953, 246 bushels an acre. Fairly good ground. The higher side we had beans on earlier on in the year that we cut that were in the 70s, surrounded by trees, lower productivity soil. To the south where we were picking corn today, much better dirt. If anything, all of the good dirt from the north side ends up on the south side from millennia of glacier activity and erosion. You guys have heard the spiel already. So 246, pretty black dirt, we'll take it. Once this rain lifts, and the sun's gonna have to shine for probably a day, depending on how much water we actually got, we've got one more big field or farm of corn, 230 acres, actually 4 fields, but it's all within the same mile or 2 mile radius. Should be good, high yielding corn, but we'll have to go pick it to find out. Happy to report that it's raining, because like I've already said, it means I can take the afternoon off for once. I don't know about you ladies and gentlemen, but this weather right here is the type of weather that really puts me at peace. I don't know if it's because when it's really wet outside, it means you can't do groundwork and have to farm, so you don't have to feel bad about not working. It wouldn't be as fun if we had a ton left to harvest, but we have such a small percentage left now that we need 1, maybe 2 good days of picking and we're done. Speaking of done, I think this video has reached its end. 2-day harvest adventure. I greatly appreciate every single one of you continuing to tune in and support the channel. Make sure you tune into the next video to see the finale on this year's corn picking. As always, I greatly appreciate every single one of you continuing to tune in and support the channel. Your viewership means the world to me. I'll catch you all in the next episode. Until then, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!